Hello, and in today's video we're doing a special one. It is predicting the FPL 2023 to 24 cheap defender that becomes the next Lord Lundstram, the next Duke Dallas, and many, many more to talk about. So if you do go on to enjoy this video, make sure you smash a like on it, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more FPL content across the season. Now, I have been doing a few uploads recently and it's been really, really great to see your reaction to it. So thanks again to the FPL community, really, really supportive. And I will be putting out content, as much as I can. Have got life at uni, so it's pretty busy. So it will be quite sporadic, unfortunately, the uploads, but just when I'm free and available and I've got time to do other things. But I will have my Game Week preview coming up, obviously, before the deadline on that Friday, the 11th of August. So watch out for that, of course. But recently, I did share my latest draft. But today, we're going to be looking at the next Lundstram, the next Dallas, those 4.0, 4.5 defenders that could be absolute gold dust. But before we do talk about this season, let's just reflect on previous campaigns, because I've had a look back through the archives and I thought it would be interesting to see, where did these cheap defenders break onto the scene? Where did they announce themselves in FPL? So I've looked back at previous seasons' stats, basically, for FPL, since the game started FPL in 2002 to 3, and looked at what their price is. Now, in an ideal world, this player tends to not play for a Big Six, traditional Big Six club, because that's why they're so good. They're a hidden gem. They're not obvious in terms of they're not playing for one of those clubs that we know as a good side. But on the odd occasion here, we've had to use players from well-known clubs, but they've just been quite cheap in the game. So, for instance, that first FPL season, so that what I've done for each of them is what was their first appearance for their team that season, and hence their first appearance in FPL, and then also what was their first attacking return? Was it an assist? Was it a goal? So that first 2002-3 season, it was the to-be Everton manager for a little bit, David Unsworth. He broke onto the scene for Everton with a game against Tottenham, and funnily enough didn't start the game, but was subbed on the 84th minute in Game Week 1 of the 2002-3 season in a 2-2 draw. So that's interesting. Not often that the so-called next, Lundstram or Dallas or these cheap defenders that we worship don't usually seem to not start games from the get-go, but he did grow into minutes and get more minutes. And then his first goal for Everton in FPL, that goal against Birmingham, Game Week 3, that was when he broke onto the scene, David Unsworth. Very, very nice and cheap. Then we had 2003 to 4, as I mentioned, not ideal, but a top 6 player here. Not a top 6 player, I'll get to it. Ivan Campo, actually he was playing for Bolton. I was thinking of Tottenham, but no, it was Bolton, another team in white. To be fair, this was amazing, because that first game, you probably thought you're not going to get any Bolton defenders in the 03-04 season when they lost 4-0 away to Man United in Game Week 1. But then, around came 7 game weeks later, that away trip to Man City, and who'd have believed it, a goal in Game Week 8 against Man City. It was just a great moment for Ivan Campo. 2004-05, it was home game for Blackburn against West Brom, and Game Week 1, Brett Emerton was making his debut, was subbed off a bit early before the final whistle on the 83 minutes, but he made his start. And then in Game Week 2, that first attacking return came away to Southampton. So, Brett Emerton, also very, very cheap and very good for his price. 05-06, it was Liam Ridgewell for Aston Villa. As I say, his first game for the club in that season, away to United in Game Week 2, and that lost 1-0 game was a bit of a killer. And it was a long wait to see his first attacking return, but once it did come, there was plenty more on the horizon. And funnily enough, just like Ivan Campo, it was away goal against Manchester City, this time in Game Week 11. 2006-07, who can forget? Matty Taylor for Portsmouth. What a player he was. And he scored his first attacking return in that Game Week 8 home fixture with West Ham. But he did actually not have a good start to his FPL points, because in that home match with Blackburn, booked in that 3-0 win in Game Week 1 at home. So, yeah, very, very good asset. He's got a few screamers, Matty Taylor, that's for sure. 2007 to 8, you had Paul Sharner, and he had that debut against Everton, and straight from the off, he gets an attack and return. I mean, what a legend. At Goodison Park, that assist in Game Week 1, it was an incredible one for the Wigan man, Paul Sharner. Then we had 08-09, Gretar Steinson, a home match for him against Stoke for Bolton, and straight away from the get-go, Game Week 1, he scored in that 3-1 victory. So, fantastic player, Gretar Steinson there. Let's have a little look across the rest of them. So, we've got a few more here to finish off with. And here we go. We've got 09-010, Graham Alexander. He was a baller, absolute baller for Burnley. And not a great start, as I mentioned. Away to Stoke, booked in that Game Week 1 2-0 defeat. But then, another goal. And this is what we love from defenders. If they are on penalties, it's an absolute FPL cheat code. And he did take a penalty at home to Sunderland in Game Week 6. And that was when you thought, this Graham Alexander is an FPL gem. 09-010. Then 10-11, it was the occurrence of Leighton Baines. He arrived as an FPL asset properly. With that fixture at first, away to Blackburn, didn't go too well. Lost 1-0 Game Week 1. But then, that home game against Manchester United, racked up with that assist in Game Week 4. And then, really, Leighton Baines, he never looked back. Because the next season, 11-12, he then did it again. He was the best FPL cheap defender of all the options. And the fact is, this guy, he did do it once again with a penalty. And this became an absolute cheat code. Leighton Baines on penalties. I mean, yeah, not a great start in that second season with obviously the home game against QPR. Lost 1-0 in Game Week 2. Didn't play the first game, but then plays in that Game Week 4 fixture at home to Villa with the penalty goal, and everyone's on him in Game Week 4 from that point onwards. So, yeah, 2 very great seasons for Leighton Baines. We move on a little bit to the 2012-13 season, and this is where we have a bit of an FPL icon, really. It is, of course, Angel Rangel. Yes, the Swansea man did break through for the 2012-13 season, and it was that Game Week 1 fixture that, you know, it looked like this Swansea side were going to do well. He didn't get an attack and return, but they did win 5-0 away at QPR. But then it was that home fixture, Game Week 2 against West Ham. He pops up with a goal, and everyone's like, oh, hello, we like the luck of this guy. And it's often been in previous seasons where the first match, maybe they don't do anything, or they get the odd assist here or there. But then that second game, which is often a home fixture for these cheap defenders, in Game Week 2, they seem to get an attack and return. And Lundstram is a good example of that. But yeah, very nice season for Angel Rangel. 13-14 season, Seamus Coleman now, of course. Seamus Coleman, again, a bit like with Leighton Baines for Everton, Coleman was brilliant because he didn't have the penalties, but what he did have was an attacking threat, bombing forward. And that first game of the season, away to Norwich in 13-14, I mean, it's just a dream. Game Week 1, goal and assist in the first match of the season, and everyone was on him from that point onwards. So, unbelievable Game Week 1 there. 14-15, Seamus Coleman did it yet again, just as his Everton counterpart Leighton Baines did 2 seasons in a row. And that first match was far from ideal to not get those appearance points away to Leicester, subbed on 85th minute. And, you know, an entertaining 2-2 draw. But Game Week 1, not good points for Coleman. But then he comes back with a goal, home to Arsenal, Game Week 2. And once again, everyone is on the Coleman bandwagon. I mean, he was just great value in the 14-15 season. We move on to more recent times. 15-16, of course, that was the first season for AFC Bournemouth. And Charlie Daniels really did come into the fore. And that first match was a bit of a nightmare for Bournemouth. On opening day, their party was pooped on by Aston Villa with that 1-0 defeat at home for Bournemouth. And there's no points there. But then, Game Week 2, nothing happened. Game Week 3, nothing happened. You had to wait a bit after Game Week 1. But then Game Week 10, home fixture v Spurs, a tough opponent. But yet, Charlie Daniels pops up with that assist in Game Week 10. and was just really good. He scored a few goals across the season. I remember one of them away to Newcastle, an absolute belter. So yeah, really good asset for us to own. 16-17 season, yes, he's there again. Charlie Daniels, it's what he does. Unbelievable. And it was a very, very tricky fixture as well. That first home Manchester United game, losing the game 3-1. But then, game week 8, nice home fixture at home to Hull. And he pops up with a goal and an assist in a fantastic 7-0 or something win, 6-0 possibly, to Bournemouth. So, Charlie Daniels, 2 seasons in a row. You can see the theme here. But that theme has not since been repeated because each season we found different players to call those cheap legends. 17-18 season, of course, PVA came through for Palace. And look, he had other good seasons, but this was a notable one. He did, of course, score a few of the goals to send, certain teams down, so-called Stoke City, just to be one example, on the final day. But look, started off really badly at home to Huddersfield, lost 3-0. You think that's a nightmare for game week 1. But then, game week 29, that home fixture Man United, and he just basically had a really strong end to the season. As I say, scored away to Stoke on the final day, or at least one of the late games in the season, and sent Stoke down. But look, he racked up some goals around game week 29, 30, 31, etc. But that home goal against Man United was a special one in game week 29. But yeah, admittedly, that PVA moment was a long one to wait for between game weeks 1 to 29. So hopefully you had someone else in between then. But then, of course, let's talk about the legendary Aaron Wan-Bissaka at 4.0 in the 18-19 season. He was an absolute gem. Unbelievable. I mean, we saw him pre-season, he was playing for Palace, but the fact is he just delivered straight from the off. And I think he actually got himself an assist in game week 1 away to Fulham. And then everyone was like, this guy, he's got to be in the team. 4.0, unbelievable. Away game against Fulham, really great to see him get that attacking return, game week 1. And then we had, of course, the best that's ever been in the cheat defenders, the cheat codes. John Lundstram announced himself in that first home game against Crystal Palace. And funnily enough, Sheffield United faced Palace at home to start this season. So a bit of a mirrored image is there. But, they did have that first away game to Bournemouth, which he did nothing. Of course, conceded as well. The Sheffield United 1-1. It was an interesting one. But ultimately, Lundstram, legend, because he didn't do anything that away fixture to Bournemouth. Subbed off on the 78th minute. You probably thought, no one's going to be buying Lundstram. He went under the radar game week 1 in that 1-1 draw. But then, that game against Palace, 1-0 goal, and a home fixture with Palace, and everyone was like, who is this Lundstram guy? He looks brilliant. Scores a goal, and we realised quickly that he's not playing in defence as FPL classified him in pre-season. He was playing midfield. I mean, it just never will happen again. FPL will never make that mistake, unfortunately, because they're just 2 on the ball now, but unbelievable. 19-20 is done. 20-21, of course. We didn't think it would happen again with Lundstram, but it was very similar. Stuart Dallas, again, we thought this guy was going to be a defender. He played in midfield. It was unbelievable. And even in the first game, away to Liverpool, game week 1, a tricky fixture. They conceded 4 goals, but yet this guy managed to pop himself a cheeky assist. Now, it wasn't perfect assist, I'll be honest, because it was one of those ones where he just hoofed it forward. Then Van Dijk got a touch on it, but couldn't clear it, and then Bamford scored. So it counts as an FPL assist. Whether or not it's an actual assist, we just don't know, but we'll take it for Dallas's sake. And, ultimately, the first game in the Premier League for Leeds, the first FPL appearance for Dallas, and he already gets an assist against Liverpool. Unbelievable game week 1 away there. But then, of course, let's not forget, he did have better moments. He scored that first goal for Leeds. I think it was at home to Leicester, if I remember rightly. I seem to remember owning him for that game, and that was a bit later on in the season. But yeah, first game and delivers. Then game week the 21-22 season, of course, we had not much choice, as not as good as Lundstram and Dallas. It was scraping at the barrel a little bit, but I guess Livramento was the best one for Southampton. Now, he had about 3 or 4 game weeks that he did well. That was about it, really. But still, we did like him because he was cheap and he was playing 4.0. I think he had this first game away to Everton? I mean, he did definitely play that away Newcastle game. I think that was in game week 3, if I remember rightly. But yeah, look, ultimately it was an amazing season for Livramento in terms of FPL, because of the value you just got from him being on the bench. And he did come through, to be fair, with a few clean sheets, but ultimately he got that first attacking return. I think when I say attacking return, I mean first goal. I think it was the home Burnley game. He scored a header, but then, of course, that first game away to Everton, game week 1, didn't go well, 3-1 loss. No one would have really looked at him. And then in game week 7, away fixture, wins a penalty in that defeat 3-1 to Chelsea. But an assist point for the penalty, we take that. And then, of course, last season, if we thought the previous season was scraping the barrel, this was even more scraping the barrel. And I've actually written down here Nico Williams for the 22-23 season. I mean, he had that first game away to Newcastle, booked in that 2-0 defeat in game week 1, so that was a bad start for sure. But then, of course, got that assist, and it was against Bournemouth. Of course, it was a bit of a dubious one, but it was not a dubious one in terms of how FPL awarded it. It was just not the best assist you've ever seen in FPL, because it's just winning a penalty from a handball. Basically hit it against one of the Bournemouth players who handballed it, and won the penalty for Forest. But look, that still counts an assist. Home to Bournemouth game week 6, that was at least an attacking return. But look, it was not great for Nico Williams, I can't lie. He didn't play a lot of games, and Aurier did come in, and also he did score away to Liverpool, his former club, but really there was not many FPL points for this guy. So I'm not sure if we can really call him the next cheap defender. I think probably a better shout from last season was probably Estupinian, because although he wasn't 4.0 and he was 4.5, you know, we thought Estupinian would be okay, you know, looked quite good at his time at Watford, but I don't think we ever thought Estupinian would be so good and so template. So yeah, Estupinian's probably the one, to be fair. And I'm not quite sure when his first attacking return came. You can always look back on the Premier League results from the 22-23 season to see. But yeah, certainly he was an absolute diamond of a player. So that's the history of these FPL cheap defenders. But let's get to the present, shall we? Let's get to the here and now, the 23-24 season. And one thing I do like to do, I've got to say, is give each of these cheap defenders little nicknames, because you know what I'm like. So we talked about David Unsworth, and basically with each of these players, a bit like with Lord Lundstram, which was, you know, the nickname he was famously given, we're going to give all of these cheap defenders basically royal ranks and titles, and basically that's alliteration as well. I just like the Lord Lundstram and the Duke Dallas. So let's start off with David, of course. David Unsworth, Duke David. Then we have Count Campo. We've got Baron Brett Emerton, Lord Liam Ridgewell, Marquess Matthew Taylor, Sir Shana, Sir Steinson, Admiral Alexander, Baron Baines, Admiral Angel, Count Coleman, Duke Daniels, Charlie Daniels, of course, Prince PVA, because a lot of people just called him PVA then, Van Arnholt, Archbishop AWB, just alliteration for the A there. It's not great, but as I say, a lot of people just said AWB then Wan-Bissaka. Lord Lundstram, of course, the most famous one. Duke Dallas, which, to be honest, I was happy I went for Dallas, because I remember that at the start of the 2021 pre-season, I was watching a video, and I've got to give a shout out to FPL Mate here, because he does always do these cheap defender videos, and I was watching his video, and he was talking about, oh, should we go for Dallas from Leeds or Ayling from Leeds? And I just remember in that holiday, I was literally watching this video, and I was like, who should I go for the next Lundstram? I'm going to put my faith in Dallas, and I'm going to come up with a nickname for him. So what begins with D that's a honorary, you know, royal title? Well, Duke is a good one. So Duke Dallas, I'm going to coin it. And that's what I went for, and Dallas was the one. So it was just so satisfying. And yeah, shout out to FPL Mate with always coming out with his videos. I also am doing that sort of video here, but I'm just providing different examples and obviously completely different content. So yeah, do check out his video if you want to. Then, of course, Lord Livramento, we just copied the same from Lundstram. And then last season, as I thought, it might probably have been Estupinian, Emperor Estupinian. We love that. So yeah, let's see what we're going to see for this season, though. So before I do give you my picks for this season, I just thought I'd show you a few pictures. And there's some funny ones here, to be honest. So new Luton player, he's just signed as a 4.0 defender for the Hatters. It is Issa Kabore. So naturally, I've got Issa in a cab. Alright, he's in a cab, and it's just slightly adapted to make the yellow New York taxi, tech cabs, a bit more orange for Luton. So yeah, Cab Ore is there to see, and hopefully he'll be the next Lundstram. Who knows? Then we've got from Sheffield United a player who actually played alongside Lord Lundstram in that 1920 season and got the attacking returns. Not quite as many as Lundstram, but still fairly good. Was of course Baldock. So we've got here Baron Baldock. Oh yes. Moving on, we have got of course this guy, and you might think, who is that? Well, I can in fact tell you, a certain character from Pirates of the Caribbean. Yes, Lieutenant Norrington. It's Lieutenant Norrington Davis. Yes, come on, you gotta love it. Pirates of the Caribbean and the Sheffield United 4.0, who might not play, to be fair, Norrington Davis. We've got to remember that. He has had injuries. But if he did come in, what a great FPL community team name, Lieutenant Norrington Davis. And then, of course, we have this guy from Burnley. It's Max Bayer, or as Burnley fans like to call him, Beckenbauer. Yes, Beckenbauer, of course, and that iconic Germany shirt, that iconic player. Can he do the FPL things for Burnley this season? Bayer for Burnley. So those are my kind of little funny bits. Now let's get down to business and let's talk through all of the lists and options that I've been considering. So here we go. This is what we've said. We've basically got a list here. So let's go through each of them one by one. So as you can see there, we've got Marquess Maatsen. So if Marquess Maatsen does arrive from Chelsea to Burnley, we'd imagine he wouldn't start for Chelsea, Ian Maatsen, because he was very good for Burnley in the Championship last season. But Burnley have not signed Maatsen just yet. So let's wait and see on that. But let's just not forget that how attacking he was. Scored that first goal of the season for Burnley last year. And a nice price. If he's 4.0, that would be very nice. Whether or not he comes in at that at 4.5, he'd still be a good value pick. I think players like Vitinho for Burnley just not going to start. So there aren't many attacking fullbacks really that we're going to think are going to be amazing for Burnley. We will talk about some of their centre-backs in Bayer and Ekdal in a bit. But Marquess Maatsen would be the nickname. Maatsen is a great asset. It's just a wait and see to see if he does play as that attacking fullback and if he actually does go to Burnley. Because if not, he won't really be an option. Okay, so then the next one we've got to talk about is Bayer. So Beckenbauer, as we teased with the photo. Now Bayer, of course, a lot of people I've seen picking him, and I'll be honest, I don't really see the logic because first up, Man City at home, you're not going to start him. Fair enough. A lot of people are benching him, but even after that, they've got really tricky fixtures. I think they've got game week 2 is a postponed game, so blank game week. We don't want one of those, ideally, but then even after that, right, they've got, I think, Aston Villa game week 3 possibly. It doesn't get much easier for their fixtures, and I just don't see the logic going there when, for the same price, you can get a Luton defender like a Bell or, as I mentioned earlier, a cheeky Kabore. But yeah, I wouldn't go for it. Then we've got Baldock, who might not be starting, might not be necessarily nailed with Bogle on that side, but I think he's a shout because he did get attacking returns in the previous campaign. And watch out for Mads Anderson as well from Luton. Norrington Davis, we've talked about a little bit. I don't know if he's going to play, but could be a decent option. Lamptey for Brighton, I just don't know if he'll start. Probably not unless Veltman gets injured. But one to watch for sure. Just need to see a few more minutes in him. Branthwaite for Everton. Now, if he gets a move for a Premier League club, then great. Whether or not he starts for Everton, we'll just have to wait and see. But he could be decent. He was pretty good, to be honest, at PSV last year. Then Malo Gusto, I wouldn't go for him until we know that Reece James is 100% confirmed out. Now, I know he's played in pre-season, Malo Gusto, but until James is out, I just don't see if Gusto's starting. I mean, I might be wrong, but it's just unlikely for me. And Chelsea are a bit of an unknown anyway, with new manager, not the easiest of first couple of fixtures. But then game week 3 onwards, if we know that Gusto's playing, of course, he could be an option. Van Heck for Brighton. I don't think he's going to be much of an option, to be honest. Did get sent off, actually, in a recent pre-season game, so not ideal, really. But no, generally he was okay last season, but I don't think he's going to get many attacking returns or minutes. And then, of course, we've got Cedric Suarez. If he gets a move back to Fulham for this season, if he stays at Fulham, or he goes to another Premier League club, he could be very decent. We know, of course, he's a proven FPL asset in his time at Southampton, got a few attacking returns, few assists, took a few free kicks as well. So Cedric Suarez could be decent, but we need to see that move and see him get minutes. Spence as the same thing really. Will he get the move? Will he play for Tottenham? Probably not, because they've just signed some more players, and I just don't see where Spence fits in at the moment. But we'll have to see. They have got Pedro Porro there already. They've got Emerson Royale, etc. So if Spence gets a move to a Premier League club, that would be brilliant. 4.0, we know how good he was for Nottingham Forest, especially in the Championship. He was an absolute baller. So if he gets the minutes he deserves, he could be decent. But it's a big if. Ike Nori, I feel like we talk about Ryan Ike Nori every season and he never really delivers. But I will put that question forward again because, yes, he could play minutes. The thing is now Doherty's signed as well. Returned to Wolves for 4.5. So, same price. Doherty's a bit more proven. But I didn't want to really mention Doherty just because he's done it before for Wolves and he's not much of an emerging asset. But watch out for Doherty. But Ike Nori could be decent as well because although fixtures for Wolves aren't great from the start, if they get better and Ike Nori is showing that he's getting those attacking returns, those goals like he got away to Everton last season, then he could be okay. Destiny. Is it his destiny to do well for Tottenham and be the cheap defender of choice? Well, I talk about with the cheap players, I like to not be from a top 6 club because they're just too obvious. They're too out there. Everyone's heard of them already, or at least the top 6 club fans have. With this example, Destiny. Now, Destiny is exciting, to be honest. But the thing about Udogie is I just don't know if Udogie is actually going to play every single week. Now, of course, he's played in pre-season, Udogie, but I just don't know. I don't know. It's going to have to be an interesting one. Udogie, however you pronounce it, I just think he could be decent, but it's a bit of an unknown with Spurs, especially with their defence not been keeping clean sheets and a new style of play under Ange Postecoglou. Then Ashley Young. I did actually mention Ashley Young in a recent video, so check back. I think it was when we were talking about the prices released, and Ashley Young came in at 4.5, or possibly even it was the draft video. It was one of the recent ones. I just said, oh, Ashley Young, what about him? And I thought it might be all right. And then the other day, after I said that, he actually scored in pre-season for Everton. So watch this space. But look, we know how much Ashley Young is a very much player towards the end of his career. He's far from young and he's probably just a backup. So don't get too excited. And Everton defensively aren't brilliant. But watch out to see if Ashley Young does play further forward, because he can do that sometimes. It's just whether or not he'll be starting every week for Everton. But one to watch for sure. Kabore we talked about for Luton. I think he's probably better than Bell, because Bell is nailed, but Kabore is likely to fit in at right wing back for Luton, so more attacking chances of returns there, and he actually is a really good player from Man City. So Kabore, you are very tempting indeed. Doughty for Luton as well, 4.5, so a bit more expensive than Kabore, but Doughty as well, we know he's going to be nailed, and he is also a wing back, so could get similar attacking returns. Ahmed Hodzic for Sheffield United was actually really good. Centre back, goal threat for Sheffield United last season. Could be really decent. And I do like him. And then finally we've got Holgate to finish off the video. I don't think Holgate will actually start for Everton. I'd be surprised. And he doesn't get that many attacking returns, to be fair. But wait and see with Holgate. He could be at good value if he does move to a Premier League club or is guaranteed to play, but I just don't think he is. And Tarkowski as well for 4.5 at the same price. You'd probably prefer him. So, yeah, those are my picks for the next cheap defender of choice for 23-24 FPL. But who is the one I'm banking on? Who is my winner out of all of these picks? For me, it's between two. It's between Kabore and Baldock. Now, we know Baldock might not play. Sure, there's a chance of that. But I'm going with Baldock as the next Lundstram or Dallas. So, hope you have enjoyed. Smash a like on it, and I shall see you in a future FPL video. Goodbye.